I'm Madison Andrews, 32, and after 7 years climbing the corporate ladder at Bailey and Moore Marketing, I finally made senior marketing director. My family has always put my younger brother Tyler first, but this time I thought they'd show up. I reserved a table at Ellison's, ordered their favorite wine, and waited. Then my phone buzzed. The message read, "You're not our priority right now." I stared at those words while something inside me finally broke. They never knew about the note I left them until it was too late. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to hear how I finally stood up for myself. Growing up in suburban Chicago, I learned early that my achievements would always be eclipsed by my brothers. Tyler was 4 years younger, but somehow that made him the eternal baby of the family, the one who needed extra attention and support while I was expected to fend for myself. When I was 10, I won my first debate competition. My certificate hung on the refrigerator for exactly 2 days before being replaced by Tyler's participation ribbon from a Little League game. By 13, I stopped telling my parents about academic achievements altogether. My straight A's were met with distracted nods while Tyler's C+ in math earned a celebratory dinner at our favorite restaurant. Tyler struggles more with schoolwork, my mother Pamela would explain when I dared to point out the disparity. "You're naturally gifted, Madison. You don't need the same encouragement." That was the narrative. Madison is fine on her own. Madison doesn't need attention. Madison understands. My father Robert was worse in some ways. A former college baseball player whose career ended with a knee injury, he lived vicariously through Tyler's athletic endeavors. He never missed a single one of Tyler's games, rearranging work schedules and canceling important meetings to be there, cheering from the sidelines with embarrassing enthusiasm. Meanwhile, my debate tournaments and academic competitions happened without parental witnesses. When I qualified for the state championships in my junior year, my parents apologized that they couldn't attend because Tyler had a regular season baseball game the same day. "We'll be there in spirit," my mother said, patting my shoulder. I knew what that meant. Their bodies would be at the baseball field, and maybe if Tyler's game ended early enough, they might catch the last few minutes of my competition. They never did. Christmas mornings were exercises in managing expectations. Tyler would unwrap the latest gaming console, expensive athletic gear, or trendy electronics. I received practical items, school supplies, sensible clothing, or books related to whatever career path my parents thought I should pursue that year. Madison appreciates practical gifts, I overheard my mother telling my aunt once. She's always been such a sensible girl. Sensible, practical, independent. The words followed me through childhood like unwanted shadows. By 16, I started working part-time at a local coffee shop. Not because we needed the money, my parents were solidly upper middle class, but because I craved some sense of control. Every paycheck represented freedom, a step toward a future where my worth wouldn't be measured against my brothers. I started keeping journals. Not the Dear Diary kind filled with teenage angst, but meticulous records of my accomplishments. Debate wins. Perfect test scores. Teacher commendations. The journal became my personal cheerleader, the only place where my achievements took center stage. My 18th birthday coincided with my high school graduation. I'd finished as valedictorian with a full scholarship to Northwestern University. My parents hosted a combined celebration dinner, but it was cut short when Tyler's baseball coach called about summer training opportunities. "We need to discuss this now," my father said, already reaching for his car keys. "Madison understands." "Don't you, sweetheart?" I nodded because that's what I always did. Madison understands. Madison accommodates. Madison doesn't make waves. That summer before college, I moved out, found a tiny studio apartment near campus, and took on extra shifts at the coffee shop to afford the rent. My mother seemed surprised by my decision to leave home early. "But why? You could save so much money staying here until fall," she said. I couldn't explain that I needed to breathe, to exist in a space where I wasn't constantly reminded of my secondary status in the family. Instead, I said something about wanting to get acclimated to the area before classes started. College became my salvation. I thrived in an environment where my efforts were recognized, where professors knew my name and valued my contributions. I double majored in marketing and psychology, worked 2 part-time jobs, and graduated summa cum laude. My parents attended my college graduation, arriving just as the ceremony began and leaving immediately after to get back for Tyler's weekend baseball tournament. They never saw me receive the department award or heard the special mention from the dean. "We're so proud," my mother said, hugging me quickly before checking her watch. "But we really need to hit the road now to avoid traffic." I understood then that no achievement would ever be enough to make me a priority. Not valedictorian. Not a full scholarship. Not graduating at the top of my class from a prestigious university. The pattern was set in stone, and I was the only one who could break it. The day after graduation, I accepted an entry-level position at Bailey and Moore Marketing in downtown Chicago. I didn't tell my parents until I'd signed the lease on my new apartment and was completely moved in. When I finally called to share the news, my mother's first question was whether I'd be home for Tyler's birthday the following month. Some patterns are hard to break, even when you see them clearly. I spent years seeking my parents' approval, crafting my life in hopes of finally earning their attention. It created unhealthy perfectionism in me, this desperate need to achieve, to prove my worth through accomplishments. Deep down, I still harbored the childish belief that if I just did enough, became enough, they would finally see me. It would take a devastating text message and an empty restaurant table for me to finally understand how wrong I was. My career at Bailey and Moore Marketing began in the mailroom, despite my marketing degree and academic honors. The company had a philosophy about learning the business from the ground up, which meant sorting mail and delivering packages to executives who barely made eye contact. For 3 months, I ate lunch alone at my desk, reviewing company materials and studying past campaigns. I volunteered for any task that might get me noticed, staying late to help with presentation prep, offering to proofread copy for junior associates, even reorganizing the supply closet to be more efficient. "You're either incredibly ambitious or desperately lonely," a voice said one day as I alphabetized the marketing brochures in the resource library after hours. I turned to find a woman about my age leaning against the doorframe. Her bright blue hair and armful of bangles stood out against the corporate beige of the surroundings. "Olivia Parker, graphic design," she said, extending her hand. "And you're the mailroom girl who's clearly overqualified for her job." That was the beginning of my first real friendship at Bailey and Moore. Olivia became my ally, inviting me to lunch with the creative team, sharing office gossip, and eventually showing my ideas to her department head when appropriate opportunities arose. Then came Eleanor Wright, Senior Vice President of Client Relations, who caught me reading a client file I'd found left open on a conference room table after hours. Instead of reprimanding me, she sat down and asked, "What do you think of their approach?" Terrified but determined, I shared my honest assessment that their branding seemed inconsistent with their target demographic and their social media strategy needed refocusing. I expected to be fired on the spot. Instead, Eleanor smiled. "Come to my office tomorrow at 9. Bring coffee and more thoughts like those." Eleanor became my mentor, giving me small projects under her supervision and providing brutally honest feedback that helped me grow. While she never showed favoritism publicly, she created opportunities for me to prove myself. My first real break came 6 months in, when a junior associate called in sick the morning of a client presentation. Eleanor pointed to me. "Madison can fill in." I had been following the project closely enough to step in with minimal preparation. The client, impressed by my knowledge of their company history, specifically requested my involvement going forward. Slowly, I moved from the mailroom to a junior associate position. While Tyler changed his college major for the 3rd time, I was pulling 12-hour days and working weekends to prove myself. My parents never asked about my job beyond vague inquiries about whether I was still enjoying the marketing thing. After 18 months, I earned my first promotion to associate account manager. I called my parents to share the news. "That's nice, honey," my mother said. "Did you hear Tyler made the dean's list this semester? First time ever. We're taking him to Cancun as a reward." I hadn't made the dean's list in college. I'd made the president's list a higher honor every semester. There had been no trips to Cancun. At work, I developed a reputation for handling difficult clients that other account managers avoided. I volunteered for troubled accounts and turned them around through a combination of attentive service and strategic thinking. When an athletic apparel brand came to us with a limited budget but big expectations, no one wanted the account. I took it, worked directly with Olivia on a creative social media campaign that cost a fraction of traditional advertising, and watched it go viral within days of launch. The client doubled their budget, and my name was mentioned in the company newsletter. I built a network of industry contacts, attending every networking event possible and following up with personalized emails. I took night courses to learn advanced analytics when I noticed the industry shifting toward data-driven marketing. When colleagues went for drinks after work, I joined them despite my introvert tendencies, knowing that relationships mattered as much as results. Then came the opportunity that would change everything. Lexington Motors, a luxury car brand with international recognition, was considering changing their marketing agency. Landing this account would boost Bailey and Moore into a new tier of agencies and potentially double our annual revenue. The pitch was assigned to a team of senior managers, but I approached Eleanor with a bold request. "I want to lead the presentation," I said during our weekly mentor meeting. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "You're not even a senior account manager yet." "But I understand their demographic better than anyone else here," I argued. "And I've spent the last year studying automotive marketing trends." She studied me for a long moment. "If you fail, it's on both of us. I'll be putting my reputation on the line alongside yours." "I won't fail," I promised. For 2 months, I lived and breathed Lexington Motors. I researched their company history, analyzed their previous campaigns, studied their competitors, and even visited dealerships posing as a potential customer to understand the sales process. I slept an average of 4 hours a night, subsisting on coffee and protein bars. I practiced my presentation in front of my bathroom mirror, in empty conference rooms, and for Olivia, who provided brutal but necessary feedback. The morning of the presentation, disaster struck. 10 minutes before the Lexington executives arrived, my computer crashed, taking with it the carefully prepared slide deck and video demonstrations. The IT department scrambled unsuccessfully to recover the files while I maintained a calm exterior, greeting the clients and offering refreshments as if nothing was wrong. When our CEO, Catherine Winters, shot me a panicked look, I simply nodded reassuringly. When the moment came, I stepped forward without slides, without notes, and delivered the entire presentation from memory. I drew diagrams on the whiteboard, described the video concepts in such vivid detail that the clients could visualize them, and presented our strategy with unwavering confidence. After the executives left, Catherine approached me. "In 20 years, I've never seen anyone pull off what you just did." 2 weeks later, I received a rare personal email from Catherine. "The Lexington account is ours. They specifically mentioned your presentation as the deciding factor. We should talk about your future here." Olivia took me out for celebratory drinks that night. "You know what this means, right? They have to promote you now." I allowed myself to hope, but said nothing to my family. Years of disappointment had taught me to keep expectations low when it came to sharing achievements with them. But privately, I imagined finally receiving their approval, finally being acknowledged as successful in my own right. The following Monday, Catherine's assistant summoned me to the executive floor for a meeting that would change everything. The executive floor of Bailey & Moore was a different world. All glass walls, modern art, and hushed conversations. Catherine's assistant led me to the conference room rather than her office, which struck me as unusual. "Good luck," she whispered before opening the door. Inside, Catherine sat at the head of the table, surrounded by several board members I recognized but had never spoken to directly. My heart hammered against my ribs as I took the only empty seat. Catherine smiled. "Madison, thanks to your exceptional work on the Lexington Motors account, we're creating a new position. Senior Marketing Director with focus on luxury brands." One of the board members, a silver-haired man with piercing blue eyes, leaned forward. "We've been watching your progress for some time. Your approach to the Turner Industries campaign last quarter caught my attention specifically. We're offering you the position," Catherine continued, sliding a folder across the table. 40% salary increase, team of 8 reporting directly to you, and office relocation to the executive floor. I opened the folder with trembling fingers, scanning the details of the offer. It was more than I'd anticipated. Much more. The compensation package included stock options, increased vacation time, and a quarterly performance bonus structure. I don't know what to say. I managed, aware that my voice sounded small in the large room. Say yes, Catherine replied with a warm smile. We need your answer by the end of the week, but I hope you won't keep us in suspense that long. After signing the preliminary acceptance papers, Catherine walked me to what would be my new office, corner location with windows on 2 sides and my name already on the door in elegant silver lettering. You've earned this, Madison, she said, handing me a glass of champagne that seemed to materialize from nowhere. To your continued success. We clinked glasses, and for a moment I allowed myself to fully embrace the triumph. After years of working twice as hard as everyone else, after countless nights and weekends sacrificed, after being overlooked and underestimated, I had finally arrived. The rest of the day passed in a blur of congratulations from colleagues, some sincere and others tinged with envy. Olivia tackled me with a hug when I told her, insisting we go shopping that weekend to find a power wardrobe worthy of an executive. By the time I arrived home that evening, I felt ready to share my news with my family. This achievement was too significant to keep to myself. Surely even they would recognize the magnitude of this promotion. I called my parents, rehearsing what I would say as the phone rang. Keep it simple, but confident. Don't downplay the accomplishment, but don't sound boastful either. My mother answered on the 4th ring, the sound of a television game show audible in the background. Mom, I have some news, I began, unable to keep the excitement from my voice. I just received a major promotion at work. Senior marketing director with my own team. That's nice, honey, she replied, her attention clearly divided. Did you get the photos I sent of Tyler's new apartment? The law school housing is really quite impressive. I gripped the phone tighter. Mom, this is a big deal. It's an executive-level position. I'll be on the leadership team. Mom, she murmured. Oh, your father wants to know if you're coming home for the 4th of July. Tyler's bringing his new girlfriend, and we're planning a barbecue. I closed my eyes, pressing the phone against my forehead for a moment before responding. Actually, I was hoping you and Dad might come to Chicago to celebrate my promotion. My treat. There's this restaurant, Ellison's, that's nearly impossible to get into, but I have a connection through work. The hesitation on the other end of the line was palpable. Well, let me check with your father about our schedule. We might have something that weekend with the neighborhood association. It's 2 weeks away, I clarified. Friday the 27th. I can make the reservation for 7 o'clock. More hesitation. Let me check if anything comes up. You know how busy summer gets. By the end of our conversation, I had extracted a tentative agreement that they would come, though the enthusiasm I'd hoped for was notably absent. Still, I clung to the possibility that seeing me in my element successful, respected, treating them to an exclusive dining experience, might finally make them view me differently. I spent the following weekend preparing for the dinner. I splurged on a new dress from Nordstrom, a sleek midnight blue sheath that projected confidence and sophistication. I scheduled a hair appointment and manicure for the day of the dinner, extravagances I rarely allowed myself. In quiet moments, I rehearsed what I would say, imagining their proud reactions when I described my new responsibilities. I even practiced a gracious speech thanking them for their support throughout my career journey, a polite fiction I was willing to maintain for the sake of harmony. The fantasy played out in my mind repeatedly, my father raising a toast to my success, my mother telling me how proud she was, both of them finally acknowledging that my path, though different from Tyler's, was equally valid and impressive. Looking back, I can see how desperately I still craved their approval, how I believed this achievement might finally be enough to secure my place as a priority in their lives. I was 32 years old with a successful career, financial independence, and a life entirely of my own making, yet still seeking validation from the 2 people who had consistently failed to provide it. That realization hadn't fully formed yet. It would take an empty restaurant table and 6 devastating words to finally open my eyes. The day of the dinner arrived, and I approached it with the same meticulous attention I gave to client presentations. I tried on my new dress 3 times, adjusting accessories and shoes until the look felt perfect. I rehearsed conversation topics during my morning shower, planning to avoid contentious subjects and focus on positive aspects of my new position. My hair appointment was scheduled for 3 o'clock, leaving plenty of time before the 7 o'clock reservation. The stylist created a sophisticated updo that made me look like I belonged in executive boardrooms. The manicurist complimented my power color choice of deep burgundy. Special occasion? She asked as she applied the top coat. Family dinner, I replied, not elaborating on the significance. Saying it aloud, I'm celebrating a major career achievement that my parents probably won't fully appreciate, seemed too pathetic. I arrived at Ellison's 45 minutes early, partly from anxiety and partly from habit. Punctuality had been drilled into me through years of corporate culture, while my parents operated on their own flexible timeline, often running 15 to 30 minutes behind schedule for everything. The restaurant exuded understated luxury, soft lighting, pristine white tablecloths, and discreet servers moving with practiced efficiency between tables. The maitre d', a distinguished gentleman with a subtle French accent, greeted me warmly. Ms. Andrews, welcome to Ellison's. Your table is ready whenever your party arrives. Thank you. It's a special occasion, I confided. A career celebration with my family. His eyes warmed. Congratulations. We'll ensure the evening is memorable. He personally escorted me to a prime table near the windows but sheltered from foot traffic, perfect for conversation. I ordered a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon, my parents' favorite, and settled in to wait. 6:45 came and went. I checked my phone repeatedly, but found no messages. At 6:55, I sent a text. At Ellison's. Excited to see you soon. 7 o'clock. The maitre d' approached with a discreet, questioning glance. Your guests are running late? Chicago traffic, I explained with a confident smile. They should be here any minute. 7:15. My phone finally buzzed with a text from my mother. Running a bit late. Traffic. Relief washed over me. They were still coming. I signaled the waiter to leave the wine breathing a bit longer. 7:30. The tables around me filled with lively conversation and laughter. Couples on dates. Business associates discussing deals. Friends celebrating birthdays or anniversaries. The empty chairs across from me became increasingly conspicuous. At 7:45, my phone buzzed again. I reached for it eagerly, expecting an update on their arrival time. Instead, I read words that stopped my heart. Tyler just got accepted to Stanford Business School. We're throwing him a surprise party tonight with family and friends. You're not our priority right now. Can we reschedule? I stared at the screen, reading the message 3 times to ensure I hadn't misunderstood. You're not our priority right now. Not we can't make it. Not emergency came up. The naked truth, finally spoken aloud after decades of being demonstrated through actions. My hands trembled so badly that I dropped my phone directly into my wine glass. The waiter rushed over as I fished it out, wine dripping onto my new dress. Is everything all right, Ms. Andrews? He asked, offering a pristine white napkin. Fine, I managed, though my voice sounded strange to my own ears. Just clumsy. I tried calling both my parents, but the calls went straight to voicemail. Of course, they were at Tyler's surprise party. Couldn't have phone rings giving away the surprise. Another text arrived, this one from my father. Your brother's achievement is a big deal. You can celebrate your work thing anytime. My work thing. Not my executive promotion. Not my career milestone. My work thing dismissible, postponable, unimportant compared to anything related to Tyler. I became acutely aware of glances from nearby tables, pitying looks from those who had figured out I'd been stood up. The waiter discreetly removed the extra place settings, the physical evidence of my humiliation disappearing, but the emotional impact deepening. A memory surfaced, My high school graduation, valedictorian speech prepared, scanning the audience and finding my parents' seats empty. They had left immediately after I received my diploma, rushing to make Tyler's baseball game across town. I had delivered that speech to an audience, missing the only people whose pride I truly wanted to see. The waiter approached again, his expression carefully neutral. "Will you be dining alone this evening, or are you still waiting for your party?" That word, party, broke something inside me. There was a party happening tonight, but I wasn't part of it. I never had been. "Just the check, please," I said quietly. "For the wine and appetizers." "But you've hardly touched them," he protested gently. Nevertheless, when the bill came, I left a tip larger than the total, a small apology for the table that remained occupied but unproductive for nearly 2 hours. The maitre d' expressed regret as I left, clearly understanding what had happened without me having to explain. "Perhaps another occasion, Ms. Andrews." "Perhaps," I agreed, though I knew I'd never return to Ellison's. The restaurant would forever be associated with this moment of clarity and pain. I stepped outside into light rain, having left my umbrella at home since the forecast had predicted clear skies. Of course. I began walking the 6 blocks to my apartment, my new heels pinching with each step. Halfway home, the drizzle transformed into a downpour. My carefully styled hair fell in wet strands around my face. Mascara streaked down my cheeks, indistinguishable from the rain. My expensive new dress clung uncomfortably to my skin, the midnight blue darkening to black. My phone buzzed again. Olivia checking in. "How's the dinner going? Are they impressed with their executive daughter?" I couldn't bring myself to respond. Not yet. Not until I processed what had happened and what it meant. By the time I reached my apartment building, I was drenched and shivering. I fumbled with my keys, dropping them twice before managing to unlock the door. Inside the lobby, I caught my reflection in the decorative mirror, smeared makeup, ruined hair, sodden dress. The physical manifestation of how I felt inside. I made it up 3 flights of stairs before sinking down, unable to continue. Sitting on the cold steps, I finally allowed the tears to come, not delicate, cinematic tears, but ugly, racking sobs that echoed in the stairwell. For 32 years, I had been trying to earn a place at a table that had never actually included a seat for me. Tonight, the truth had been served up in 6 simple words. "You're not our priority right now." They never had been more honest. I don't remember exactly how long I sat on those stairs, soaking wet and crying. Eventually, the practical side of me, the side that had gotten me through childhood and built my career, took over. I picked myself up, climbed the remaining stairs to my apartment, and stripped off the ruined dress as soon as I got inside. I stood under a hot shower until the water ran cold, then wrapped myself in a bathrobe and pulled my Northwestern University sweatshirt from the back of my closet. It was old, faded, and too big, a comfort item I rarely allowed myself to indulge in. With wet hair and no makeup, I looked younger than my 32 years. I looked like the college girl who had believed success would eventually win her parents' approval. The girl who hadn't yet accepted the painful truth about her family dynamic. I poured a glass of wine, not the expensive Cabernet from the restaurant, but the cheap Pinot Noir I kept for cooking, and found myself pulling out a photo album from the back of my closet. I hadn't looked at these pictures in years, deliberately avoiding the visual evidence of what I already knew. Page after page confirmed the pattern. Tyler's 8th birthday party, elaborate decorations, dozens of guests, my parents beaming beside him. My 8th birthday, a rushed dinner at a chain restaurant, my father checking his watch throughout. My high school graduation, one hurried photo before my parents left. Tyler's middle school promotion ceremony, multiple post shots with extended family members. Christmas after Christmas, vacation after vacation. The disparity was unmistakable. Not just in the gifts or the activities, but in my parents' expressions. With Tyler, their faces shone with genuine pride and joy. With me, their smiles seemed obligatory, their attention already drifting elsewhere. I set the album aside and reached for my laptop, a masochistic impulse driving me to my parents' social media profiles. There it was, documented for everyone to see. Posts about Tyler's achievements filled their pages, accompanied by effusive captions. So proud of our amazing son. Couldn't ask for a better boy. Our pride and joy knocked it out of the park again. My own milestones appeared sporadically, if at all. My first promotion had warranted a brief congrats to Madison on her new job, not even correctly identifying the achievement. My graduate school completion hadn't been mentioned at all. The most recent post was from earlier that evening. Photos of Tyler surrounded by family and friends, balloons declaring Stanford bound. My mother's caption read, "Dropping everything to celebrate our superstar son's acceptance to Stanford Business School. Family always comes first. Family always comes first." Except when the family member was me. I poured another glass of wine. Then another. With each glass, the hurt transformed, morphing from raw pain into something harder and clearer. By midnight, I found myself dialing Eleanor's number, not caring about the late hour. She answered on the second ring, her voice alert despite the time. "Madison? Is everything all right?" The story spilled out of me. The promotion, the dinner plans, the devastating text, the walk home in the rain. I explained the lifelong pattern of being second best, the constant striving for approval that never came. Eleanor listened without interruption until I ran out of words. Then she sighed deeply. "Oh, Madison. I'm so sorry they can't see your worth." "What's wrong with me?" I asked, hating the vulnerability in my voice but unable to suppress it. "Why am I never enough?" "Nothing is wrong with you," Eleanor replied firmly. "The question is what's wrong with them that they can't appreciate the extraordinary woman you are." "But Madison, listen to me carefully. Your family won't change until you do." "What do you mean?" "As long as you continue accepting their behavior, they'll continue providing it. They have no incentive to change because you've never required it of them. You keep showing up, hoping for different results, but accepting the same disappointment." Her words stung with their accuracy. I had spent decades adjusting my expectations downward, making excuses for their behavior, accepting scraps of attention when I deserved a full plate. "So what do?" I asked, the wine making my tongue loose but my mind surprisingly clear. "That depends on what you want," Eleanor replied. "If you want them in your life on different terms, you need to establish boundaries and be willing to enforce them. If you've reached your limit, you may need distance to heal. Either way, you need to stop seeking validation from people who aren't equipped to provide it." After we hung up, I sat on my couch watching the city lights through my window, Eleanor's words echoing in my mind. The initial sadness had transformed into something else, a clarity I hadn't experienced before. I saw the pattern of my life with new eyes. The endless striving for accomplishments, hoping each one would finally be enough to make my parents see me. The perfectionism born not from healthy ambition, but from desperation for approval. The relationships I'd sabotaged because I didn't believe I deserved priority status in anyone's life. As the night deepened toward morning, anger began to replace sadness. Not a destructive rage, but a protective fury on behalf of both my adult self and the child who had never understood why her best was never good enough. By 3 a.m, as the first hints of dawn lightened the sky, I reached a moment of perfect clarity. No achievement would ever change how my parents saw me. No promotion, no success, no accomplishment would ever elevate me to equal status with my brother in their eyes. The problem had never been that I wasn't doing enough. It was that nothing would ever be enough. The realization was both devastating and liberating. If nothing would ever change them, then I needed to change my expectations and my boundaries. I needed to stop offering them opportunities to disappoint me. I needed to accept that the validation I sought would never come from them, and I needed to stop organizing my life around the pursuit of it. As the sun rose fully, illuminating my apartment with golden light, I made my decision. It was time to end the cycle. Time to stop accepting scraps from a table where I deserved a full place setting. Time to write my own priority list, with myself at the top. What happened next would change my family dynamic forever, but first, I needed to put my decision into words they couldn't ignore. I slept for exactly 2 hours before waking with complete clarity about what I needed to do. My kitchen table became command central as I began drafting my response to years of neglect, condensed into one final message. The first attempt was too emotional for pages of cataloged hurts and disappointments. I tore it up. The second was too apologetic, still seeking approval even in my attempt to break free. That joined the first in the trash. By the fifth draft, I had distilled decades of pain into a single sentence that contained everything I needed to say. Congratulations to Tyler. Since he's always been your priority, let him handle it now. Madison. Let him handle it now. The ambiguity was deliberate. Let him handle what? Their elderly care? Their emotional needs? Their expectations and demands? All of it? Yes, all of it. Whatever it entailed, I was stepping back after a lifetime of trying to earn a place I would never be granted. I drove to my parents' suburban home at 5 a.m, the roads empty except for delivery trucks and early shift workers. Their house looked exactly as it always had: pristine lawn, carefully tended flower beds, American flag hanging beside the front door. The physical manifestation of their perfect family image. Celebration decorations still hung on the porch, blue and red streamers, and a banner reading, Stamford Bound. Someone had taped photos of Tyler throughout his life to the front door, a visual timeline of the son who had always mattered most. I stood there for a long moment, studying those photos. Tyler at 5 in a baseball uniform. Tyler at 12 winning a science fair. Tyler at 18 in his high school graduation gown. Tyler at 22 receiving his undergraduate diploma. Not a single photo included me. I slipped my note through the mail slot, hearing it land on the hardwood floor of the entryway. For a brief moment, I was tempted to ring the doorbell, to force a confrontation that was decades overdue. The fantasy of finally saying everything I'd swallowed over the years was powerfully tempting. Instead, I chose quiet dignity. This wasn't about creating drama or inflicting pain. It was about finally prioritizing my own well-being. I returned to my car without looking back, a strange sense of lightness spreading through my chest despite my exhaustion. Back at my apartment, I implemented a self-protection protocol. I turned off my phone completely, not just silent, but powered down. I packed a small overnight bag and booked a room at a lakeside bed and breakfast 2 hours north in Michigan, a place I'd read about but never visited. I sent a brief email to Catherine explaining a family emergency required me to take Friday off, but assuring her I'd be available Monday morning for my first official day in the new position. Then I left a voicemail for Olivia, simply saying I needed the weekend away and would explain everything later. The drive along Lake Michigan's shoreline provided time to process my emotions. I fluctuated between certainty I'd done the right thing and panic that I'd burned an irreparable bridge. By the time I reached the charming Victorian bed and breakfast, exhaustion had overtaken both emotions. I slept for 14 hours straight, waking disoriented to late morning sunlight filtering through lace curtains. The innkeeper, a grandmotherly woman named Martha, expressed concern when I finally appeared for a late breakfast. "Honey, I was about to check if you were still breathing in there," she said, setting a plate of blueberry pancakes before me. "You looked half dead when you arrived yesterday." "Family situation," I explained vaguely. She nodded with the wisdom of someone who had seen many guests arrive in similar states. "The lake has a way of putting things in perspective. Take the path behind the garden to find the private beach. Sometimes water knows things we don't." I followed her advice, spending hours walking the empty shoreline, the vastness of Lake Michigan stretching like an inland ocean before me. I collected smooth stones, skipped them across the water's surface, and gradually felt my mind clearing. In my room that evening, I found a leather-bound journal on the bedside table with a note from Martha. Sometimes writing it down helps you let it go. Taking her suggestion, I began documenting every memory of being overlooked, every instance of Tyler's preferential treatment, every moment of seeking validation and coming up empty. The journal became a catalog of hurts, but also a release valve. With each entry, I felt the grip of these memories loosening slightly. I wasn't writing to show anyone else. This was for me alone, a way to externalize the experiences that had shaped me so I could begin to reshape myself. By Sunday morning, I felt strong enough to turn my phone back on. The barrage was immediate: 37 missed calls, 26 voicemails, and over 50 text messages. The progression was telling. The first messages expressed confusion. What note? What does this mean? These quickly evolved into irritation. Madison, this is childish. Call us immediately. Then came anger. How could you do this to us? To your brother? This was his special night. The later messages shifted to concern. We're worried about you. Please let us know you're safe. And finally, manipulation. Your mother is having anxiety attacks over this. Is that what you wanted? Tyler had sent a single text. What did you mean by that note? What am I supposed to handle? Olivia reported that my parents had called the office looking for me, and that they'd shown up at my apartment building only to be turned away by the doorman who followed my standing instructions about unexpected visitors. I sent a single reply to all three of them. I'm fine. Need space. Will contact you when ready. Then I turned off notifications and spent my final day at the lake considering what boundaries would look like going forward. I wasn't ready to cut ties completely. Despite everything, they were still my family. But I couldn't return to the old pattern either. On the drive back to Chicago, I made a decision to meet with them in 2 weeks' time. I would be clear about my expectations, firm about my boundaries, and prepared to walk away if they couldn't respect either. The note had been my declaration of independence, not from my family entirely, but from the role I'd played within it for 32 years. I was no longer willing to be the understanding daughter who accepted second place. I was no longer available to be the emotional support who received none in return. Whether our relationship could survive this transformation remained to be seen, but for the first time, I was prioritizing my own well-being over their comfort. The sense of empowerment that came with that choice was worth whatever consequences might follow. 2 weeks passed in a blur of new responsibilities at work. I threw myself into my role as senior marketing director, focusing intensely on learning the intricacies of managing a team and developing strategies for our luxury brand clients. The distraction was welcome, providing structure during an emotionally turbulent time. Catherine noticed my heightened focus. You're settling into the position admirably, she commented during our weekly check-in. But you seem to be running from something rather than toward it. Her perception was unsettling in its accuracy. Family complications, I admitted. Nothing that will affect my work. Madison, she said gently, I've been where you are, believing work can fill the gaps left by personal disappointments. It can't. Not completely. Take it from someone who learned the hard way. I scheduled the meeting with my parents for Saturday afternoon at a neutral location, a coffee shop equidistant between my apartment and their suburban home. I arrived 20 minutes early to secure a corner table that offered some privacy while still being in a public space. They arrived 5 minutes late, my mother clutching a gift bag tied with blue ribbon. My father looked older somehow, the lines around his mouth deeper than I remembered. Tyler was noticeably absent. He had a study group, my mother explained before I could ask. He sends his love. Of course. Even now, Tyler had more important priorities. The first 10 minutes consisted of awkward small talk, comments about the weather, questions about my apartment, observations about the coffee shop's decor. They were clearly waiting for me to explain my note and subsequent disappearance. I was waiting for them to acknowledge the reason behind it. Finally, I pulled a folded paper from my purse, not for dramatic effect, but because I knew my emotions might derail me from saying everything that needed to be said. I've prepared something I need you both to hear. I began, unfolding the page. I've spent my entire life trying to earn a place of importance in your lives. I've achieved academically, professionally, and personally, not just for myself, but in hopes that something would finally make you see me as equal to Tyler in your eyes. My mother began to interrupt, but my father placed his hand over hers, nodding for me to continue. When I was 12, you missed my debate championship to attend Tyler's regular season baseball game. When I was 18, you left my high school graduation early to make it to his baseball game. When I graduated college summa cum laude, You stayed for the ceremony but missed the departmental honors because you needed to get back for Tyler's weekend tournament. I continued with specific examples, dates, and events cataloging a lifetime of being secondary. My voice remained steady, the emotion drained from these memories after writing them in the journal at the Lakeside Inn. 2 weeks ago, I invited you to celebrate the biggest achievement of my career. You agreed to come, then canceled at the last minute for Tyler's celebration, telling me explicitly that I wasn't a priority. That message simply confirmed what your actions have demonstrated my entire life. My mother's eyes had filled with tears, but her first words were defensive. We always treated you both the same. You're just more sensitive about these things. My father shook his head. You're being too harsh, Madison. We've always been proud of you. You just never needed the same attention Tyler did. You were always so independent. I became independent because I had no choice, I replied calmly. And I'm not being harsh, I'm being honest.
This isn't about blame.
It's about acknowledging reality so we can decide if and how to move forward. My mother pushed the gift bag toward me. We got you something to show how proud we are. Inside was a silver frame containing Tyler's Stanford acceptance letter. Not my promotion announcement. Not a congratulatory card for my achievement. Tyler's letter, framed as a gift for me. The gesture crystallized everything. Even their attempt at reconciliation centered Tyler. I stood, leaving the frame on the table. I need to go. Madison, please, my mother began. I'm not cutting you out of my life, I clarified. But I need time to establish my own boundaries. When I'm ready, we can try again with clearer expectations on both sides. I walked out without looking back, feeling neither triumph nor despair, just certainty that I'd done what was necessary for my own well-being. The following months brought significant changes. At work, I immersed myself in building a supportive, equitable team culture. I made sure each team member's contributions were recognized, celebrating their successes publicly and addressing challenges privately. I became the leader I had always wished for, present, attentive, and fair. Catherine took notice, offering formal mentorship for an eventual executive track position. You have a rare combination of analytical and emotional intelligence, she told me. The technical skills got you here, but your leadership style will take you to the top. My team's first major presentation to international clients was a resounding success, earning recognition in an industry publication that described me as a rising star with innovative approaches to luxury brand positioning. Beyond work, I focused on building what Eleanor called my chosen family, the network of friends and mentors who valued me authentically. Olivia and I established a weekly dinner tradition, eventually including other friends who brought diverse perspectives and genuine warmth to my life. I joined a community volunteer group, finding satisfaction in contributing to causes I cared about while connecting with people outside my professional circle. I started dating someone who celebrated my successes without competition or comparison, teaching me how healthy relationships could function. Most significantly, I began therapy sessions focused on processing childhood emotional neglect. My therapist helped me understand that my perfectionism and workaholic tendencies weren't inherently negative traits, but had developed as protection mechanisms. With awareness came the ability to choose when these traits served me and when they needed moderating. 3 months after our coffee shop meeting, my father suffered a heart attack. Despite our strained relationship, I went immediately to the hospital. My mother sat alone in the waiting room, Tyler absent again, this time studying abroad in Europe with no immediate plans to return. I didn't know who else to call, she admitted when I arrived. The crisis created an unexpected space for change. With my father vulnerable in his hospital bed and my mother overwhelmed by medical decisions, I stepped into a role I was uniquely qualified to fill, organized, efficient, and capable of managing complex situations under pressure. I asked doctors the right questions, organized medical information, and took control of the situation with the same competence I brought to my professional life. I didn't know you could handle this so well, my mother commented on the third day, watching me coordinate with insurance companies and arrange for home care. There's a lot you don't know about me, I replied without bitterness, simply stating a fact. During his recovery, my father became uncharacteristically reflective. "I think I took you for granted," he said quietly during one of my visits. "You were always so capable. I never worried about you the way I worried about Tyler." "That's the problem, Dad," I explained. "Being worried about isn't the same as being valued. Being seen for your struggles isn't the same as being seen for your strengths." My parents witnessed my competence during the crisis, the same competence that had built my career but had previously been invisible to them. They overheard hospital staff assuming I was the primary caregiver, listened to colleagues who called to check on me mentioning my recent promotion, observed firsthand the life I'd built without their support. Tyler's video calls from Europe revealed his helplessness with practical matters, his dependency on others to navigate basic challenges. The contrast between us had never been clearer, not in the ways my parents had always seen, but in the reality of who we had become as adults. Slowly, tentatively, we began rebuilding our relationship on different terms. I maintained clear boundaries, declining my mother's sudden attempts to overcorrect with excessive attention. I established weekly check-in calls with defined time limits. I required acknowledgement when behaviors hurt me rather than accepting excuses or deflections. When old patterns emerged, I simply walked away from the conversation, making it clear I would no longer participate in dynamics that diminished me. I taught them, through consistent reinforcement, how to properly celebrate my achievements, not with comparisons to Tyler or backhanded compliments about being the independent one, but with genuine recognition. Their attempts were awkward at first, decades of established patterns difficult to break. But small moments of progress appeared. My mother asking detailed questions about a work project, my father sending an article related to marketing trends with a note saying he thought of me when he read it. I acknowledged these efforts without overvaluing them, maintaining perspective about the relationship we were building versus the one I had longed for throughout childhood. Forgiveness came gradually, not as a single moment of emotional catharsis, but as a series of small choices to release expectations of what could have been. 1 year after the promotion dinner debacle, I hosted a small celebration with my chosen family, Olivia, Eleanor, colleagues who had become friends, and the man who had taught me relationships could be reciprocal rather than extractive. To priorities, I toasted, raising my glass in the intimate gathering. To knowing your worth, Eleanor added. That evening, surrounded by people who valued me authentically, I realized the crisis had forced necessary growth, painful but ultimately transformative. The note I left that morning had been the turning point, the moment I finally advocated for myself after a lifetime of accommodation. The healing journey continues, as these things always do. Some days bring perfect clarity, others resurrect old hurts. But the foundation has shifted permanently. Self-respect is non-negotiable in all my relationships now, including with my parents. If you're watching this and recognizing your own family dynamics in my story, know that you deserve to be prioritized too. You deserve relationships that reflect your worth rather than diminish it. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are the ones most necessary for your well-being. What would change in your life if you stopped accepting less than you deserve? Have you ever had to leave a note of your own? Share your story in the comments below, and if this resonated with you, please like and subscribe to join our community of people choosing self-respect over endless striving for approval. Remember, sometimes the family you choose appreciates what the family you were given never could. That knowledge has made all the difference in my journey toward healing, and I hope it helps you find your way too. Thank you for listening to my story.